Hey everyone, welcome. We'll just wait a couple more minutes before we get started. This is Aditya, our guest.
Hello.
Hey, welcome Aditya. I'll officially introduce you in a bit. But yeah, I know you can't see people joining. But yeah, we're just waiting.
Okay.
Yeah. In the meantime, how has yeah, I was just asking you. So you're an incoming at Google. So how does that feel?
That's very exciting. Yeah, this is going to be my first full-time role, so I'm very excited to see how that's going to be. I'm starting in 2 weeks, so very excited to get started. I'll also be close to home, so that's very nice as well. Yeah.
At home is Bay Area.
What? Yeah, home is in the Bay Area, yes. So I'll be working in the Sunnyvale office, yeah. So I'm very excited.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
back to the Bay Area from CMU, so that must be
yeah.
exciting.
Back to the nice weather, yeah. Um,
Yeah, once a Californian. Good, good. No, you
yeah.
found something close to home. And yeah, so tell us a little bit more about your role until, we are just waiting, or we can get started.
Yeah, yeah, of
Why
course.
don't we start and then
Okay, awesome.
we can talk more about everything.
Cool. That sounds good to me.
All right. So, welcome everyone to STEAM in AI's Builder and Career Pathways Lab. Today's session is especially exciting because we are going beyond theory and talking to someone who actually built this journey step by step, from high school projects and leadership to Carnegie Mellon, Microsoft, then published in AI research and is now becoming an incoming AI Catalyst Fellow at Google. Whew. And how old are you, Aditya?
I'm 21.
Oh my goodness, wow. One of the biggest questions parents ask is, what does a strong AI pathway actually look like today? And students usually ask, what should I actually do? What I actually be doing right now? And that's exactly what today is about. Aditya's story is especially valuable because he didn't just focus on grades or competitions. He combined technical depth with leadership, storytelling, research, and real world impact. So, welcome, Aditya.
Hello, thanks. I'm glad to be here.
So, let's start from your high school. A lot of students watching this may think, I'm not advanced enough for AI or coding. So, what did your starting point actually look like?
Yeah, so I guess like my starting point actually started a little bit later than most people might think. So I think yeah, like I've done a lot of work in AI now, but honestly, like up till high school, I didn't really do a lot of work in artificial intelligence and machine learning. So both my parents like they both did schooling in India, so they didn't get the typical high school extracurricular experience. So even for them, this was like a new learning curve, and it was great to like learn this whole process with them. But because of that, I actually didn't have any aspirations to go to a top college until like maybe my sophomore year of high school. And yeah, both my parents worked in tech jobs, so they were always like, let's get you into coding. But it was very unclear whether that was something that I was interested in. I did a lot of coding recreationally, and they had me do a lot of projects, but I wasn't really sure what niche I was interested in. I think my starting point in like artificial intelligence and machine learning came from I used to watch like a lot of YouTube. And I came to a point where I got a lot of videos regarding like computer science. And I stumbled upon OpenAI's account. This was like in like I think like 2020, 2019. So this is before they were working on ChatGPT. Um, they were working more on like a branch of machine learning called reinforcement learning. And they found a way to make it gamify it and show it in a very cool way. So one of the videos that I watched was something called multi-agent hide and seek, and I thought this was really cool. It was basically a video that showed how it teaches robots how to play the game hide and seek. And they learn like the various mechanics and physics of hide and seek, and they're also able to like adapt to new environments. And it was very cool because like the hide hiders were learning new strategies to like evade the seekers, and the seekers were learning new ways to evade the hiders. So I thought that was a very cool thing. And at first I was like, okay, like how do we do this? I tried looking up some YouTube videos about this, and all those concepts went over my head. So the first thing I did, I was intrigued to learn more. So I asked my parents, and I was thinking like, oh, like what can I do to actually learn more about these things? And I started with going online to Udacity, which is like an online learning platform, and I took a nano degree course there, specifically AI programming with Python. And this taught me like very basic data science libraries and some of the mathematical machinery I needed to understand simple AI models. And then from there, I that was what kind of started my AI journey as I understood more about like what I could do in the space in AI.
Wow, that's very impressive that you stumbled upon a game from OpenAI, the hide and seek, and from that like uh, there was enough curiosity for you to go on Udacity, take up an on-demand learning course on your own. Like that's very self-driven approach to instead of and it was also new that there weren't people who knew much. So it was like a discover on your own kind of a thing. So wow, amazing. From YouTube video to actually learning, taking a course, completing it. And then what did you do after you completed that Udacity course? Did you start building stuff?
Yeah, so I did start building stuff. And I think like back then, like the concept of AI and machine learning was very different than what the concept of AI and machine learning is right now. I was this was actually like smack dab like close to when like COVID hit for me. So this was like around the end of sophomore year for me. So for me there was a lot of incentive to work on AI for education. So one thing that I thought was very cool, and something that I've learned, like I saw a lot of people doing, like a project that I thought would be pretty cool was actually emotion recognition in faces. So this is something that like it's not very simple to do in machine learning, but it isn't very super difficult. So I thought this would be a great first project to start off with all the skills that I've gained. So I was focusing on the task of emotion recognition. So I took a data set, I trained a model, and
Emotion or just motion?
Emotion. So like I think that my goal was basically like okay, for teachers it's very difficult for them to determine like whether people are engaged in content because it's online. So this is just a way to help teachers understand whether or not students were engaging with the content, if they were excited
Oh,
about the
wow.
content, and if they were bored, if they needed a break. So I thought this would be like a good a passive way for teachers to figure out, oh, like, is this something that, essentially, is this a strategy for teachers to help them while they're teaching? So yeah, that was one of my first projects, and I think it did help me learn a lot. Um, yeah.
Was the project ever adopted by teachers or
Yeah, so I actually worked with someone not in my high school, but it was one of my one of my family friends actually their like father was working on something similar for one of their companies actually, so they asked me to help them work on the technology, like the emotion recognition technology for them. So I didn't actually end up using it for the school purpose, but because they heard like I was working on this, I actually got a chance to like talk to a mentor that was working in a very similar space, so yeah.
oh wow, that's impressive. So I'm assuming you had strong academics, but a lot of students today have that, right? Like they have great profiles, perfect GPA scores, so many APs, test scores. So what do you think differentiated your profile from other candidates who potentially would look similar on paper as you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's definitely difficult to differentiate yourself now that there's like the competition has definitely gotten more intense. One thing that I always tell people when they're asking the same question is it's very important to have a well-rounded profile, but a lot of people do have a well-rounded profile, so it's also important to have technical depth in a certain area. And I call this like a spike. I think this is something that I like learned while I was also going through the college admission process, but I think it's very important to have like technical depth in a very highly specific area relating to your major. Mostly because I think like you have to figure out like we basically like college admissions officers like to see a story. So you have to kind of figure out like when you are working in this highly specific area, like how you can translate that into like impact or what you're passionate about and how you can show that passion through the essays to your college admission officers. Even though it seems like kind of counterintuitive because I know college is where you're supposed to figure out what you're interested in. I think it does help college admission officers kind of give a reason for why you should be a part of the school if you do have something that you're deeply passionate about and have shown excellence in.
So you mentioned something called spike,
Mhm.
right? I haven't heard that term before. So what does that mean exactly?
Yeah, so spike basically just means I'll give an example for myself. So I this is not what I ended up doing, right? For like the rest of my life, but in high school I was very interested in computational biology. So a lot of the research that I did was in computational biology. So I started out doing research my sophomore year in infectious diseases, and I realized that I had a lot of skills that were relating to that, and it was also in machine learning, so I could use a lot of the skills that I was interested in. So what I mean by spike is essentially a lot of people have like volunteering experience, leadership experience in clubs, but I think what really drives people, I think like, maybe like a more common term is like people use the term like passion project, but I think beyond passion project, I think a spike encompasses more than just like one project. It could also be like a series of projects, maybe a couple of internships. It could even be like a conference you went to. I think there's like a lot of ways to show that you're very interested in a certain area, and I think having that kind of shows admissions officers, hey, like you're actually interested in the major that you're applying for, in a very, very specific way because you've put all of this work to show that you're like show your excellence in that field.
So what I'm hearing is what you mean by spike is basically not just have one thing, but have many related things to that. Like you mentioned, going to a conference, submitting to a competition.
Mhm.
So doing more than just one big thing, like one passion project that you write all the essays about it, but showing many different things related to that to show
Yes.
that you're actually demonstrating interest.
Yeah, exactly. Because I think a lot of people know that they have to do extracurriculars, but I think the issue is it's hard. Like I think people do it in very different areas, and I think the issue is once you do it in different areas, the quality of your extracurriculars also drops because you're dividing your attention among so many different things.
Yeah.
If you keep them centered, it also helps you keep the quality higher because the skills that you need are more similar, more common among those. And it also helps you and it also helps you hone in on what you're interested in and helps you learn more, right? Like I think if you're attention is divided among a bunch of different things. You're not able to build skills effectively in any one area properly.
So your spike, you said, could be like in the biomedical, that's what you mentioned, right? Is that what
Yeah.
your spike was? Okay,
Yeah, so that's what I was actually interested in.
at that time.
Part of the reason why I went to Carnegie Mellon actually is because they had a really great computational biology program. And one of the internships that I actually did in high school, the co-founder of that internship was a professor at Carnegie Mellon, so that was one of the main reasons why I went there. But yeah, again, like that kind of shows like I think it's very important to have like ties to like research and show that you're like very like competent and interested in a certain field. Yeah.
I see. So why did you pursue advanced maths so aggressively?
Yeah, so I think specifically for machine learning, it's very important
Hmm.
that you do have like strong mathematical foundations,
Hmm.
especially if you're interested in like research or machine learning theory. I also think it helps a lot with figuring out what is the best model to use in a certain scenario. It also helps a lot with figuring out how can you extend what has already existed, right, in current models. So that's kind of the reason why I pursued advanced math so aggressively. I mentioned I took that AI programming with Python in a degree, in that they talked briefly over like statistics, calculus. So I ended up using a lot of those concepts early on in my sophomore year. So I think that's kind of the reason why I wanted to gain that mathematical knowledge so early on.
I see. And how important were initiative and leadership in your specific application?
Yeah, I think it is really important. Like I mentioned, I think it's important if you have intention. I think a lot of people just try to put their hands in like a ton of different leadership roles. And I think, again, like I mentioned, if you do a ton of different things, the quality of each of them goes down. I think leadership is also very important because all the stuff that I mentioned teaches you technical skills. But leadership teaches you soft skills that you can learn from courses or even from classes. I would say like okay, like for instance, like one example of leadership was I was working with a team. Um, essentially, I got reached out to by this company called Hack for Earth, a nonprofit called Hack for Earth Network. They wanted to help forecast wildfire frequency from carbon dioxide emissions in California. And this required leading like a team of like around like 10 students for this project. So I think like one thing that that really helps with is like it helps you build like interpersonal skills. And also like I'm sure like anyone that's like worked in management realizes that that also like it helps you learn how to like delegate and then focus on strategy for like a longer term project. So it's not just like the technical skills and like doing things like one on one. It's also figuring out like what do I need to do in like 2 weeks or like 4 weeks? Like how do I make sure that everyone is utilizing the skills that they have like they're best at? I think all this becomes important as you move on from like shorter projects to like longer term like research projects that you'd want to like submit or things like that. Yeah.
And so, do you think colleges care about the depth or the breadth of the things that you have done, a candidate has done?
Yeah, so I think there's only 10 common app extracurricular spaces. I think like 10 is also a lot. So I think like it's a it's a big trade-off between like depth and quantity for sure. Um
Mm.
I think it's definitely better to have like 5 or 6 really good extracurriculars rather than 10 bad extracurriculars, right? So I think like what I mean by like good extracurriculars are ones where you've like maybe done them for several years, you have leadership positions, ones where you've shown measurable impact. Um and these don't have to be like very tangible things like clubs. One things that I've written extracurriculars about is like submitting a research paper was one of my projects. Even consulting for a company was one of my extracurriculars. I think it's definitely more open-ended than most people think about what you can put in the extracurricular section.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I completely agree with that. And the depth versus the breadth also. Because, yeah, people are like, we have been given 10, so we should not stop at five. We should write everything.
Yeah,
Even small
yeah.
little things that I've done. Oh, I volunteered here or did this. And even if it was for 2 hours, I should list that. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, that's not true. That's not, you go for quality over quantity and really show depth. And yes, Aditya wrote an research paper, so he had that. But even if you didn't have that, think about the things that you have done and small little things that you have done that could have impacted in a big way to anybody, like even a small group of people. Writing that makes a like even if it's a club at your school, but you transform lives of people. What did the club actually do or accomplish, whether it is in your school or outside of school? So things like that. Think about the things that that were accomplished and the impactful because of the work that you did, as opposed to just listing activities, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so one thing I found especially interesting in your profile was that you co-founded a student-led publication that scaled internationally. So tell us more about that. Why did you start? What was it about?
Yeah, of course. So this actually is something that I started with one of my really close friends. So he
This
was
was in high school or CMU?
this was in high school.
Okay.
And this is something that actually is continuing right now. So if anyone wants to
Oh,
look it up, it's called Students X Students. But yeah,
what is it called? Slow?
Students X Students. So just students, and then you had an X in the middle and students.
Okay.
Yeah. So the reason why we started this is because I started this with like two of my friends, and I realized that there's a severe gap in the education system for writing. One of my friends was very deeply passionate about writing, so he was the one that kind of had me do some like realize this flaw actually more deeply. And I think the reason why is that just like the nature of how schooling works is teachers give you templates for students to work on. And that makes it very difficult to appreciate the beauty of writing. It's something that I realized actually as I wrote more articles, like more technical articles. And I think we publish Students Like Students to help students publish their articles outside of school and recognize their voice and realize what they were passionate about outside of that. So that was kind of the reasoning behind that.
I see. And you said it's live even today and it's globally recognized. So how many users or people, writers you have on the platform?
Yeah, so I haven't looked at the numbers like exactly like recently, but I think we definitely have like hundreds of writers. I think last I checked we were probably like at 300 writers.
Okay.
The way that it works is kind of a you write as you go basis. So these writers can submit articles to our platform. We'll give them edits or comments to make sure that it's ready for publication. We'll give it back to them and we'll go through some reviewing process. And then after it's ready, then we'll publish it to our platform. Yeah, so that's kind of the process. But we've gotten a lot of exposure. We've gotten like I think like hundreds of thousands of views on like our articles. So it's definitely been a very cool experience to lead.
Writers, yeah. And what kind of topics does your publication cover?
Yeah, so I think we broke it up into a couple of different categories. So I think it's tech, which is more relating to technology. Then we have a growth category, which is relating to like productivity, self-help, like those kind of things. Figuring out like how you can better yourself. And then we have like a global category, which is relating to more world events. So this is more like politics relating. And yeah, those like are maybe like our three
Be
major
part of it.
categories. Yeah, but we have like maybe one or two other ones. Yeah.
Okay. And in your story, there is a combination of technical AI work with human-centered impact. And you've worked on healthcare, women in STEM, education access, disease modeling. So was that intentional?
Yeah, I would say it was somewhat intentional. I think one thing I really enjoy about computer science is that it's one of the fields that you can feel like it's very easy to start up and build projects that have like deep impact even at a young age. So I think that was something that I really wanted to do when I was young. I also joined this accelerator program while I was in high school. It's called the Knowledge Society. And one of the things that this program emphasized was the idea of impact along with technical excellence. So you use technical excellence as a way to break down the barrier to build like to making impact. So that was another reason like why I was striving to find ways to make human-centered impact. So I had a lot of mentors that were interested like that told me that this was kind of the way that you want to like look for projects. And yeah, like I think like there's a lot of things that were particularly relevant at the time. So for instance, like COVID was one big thing that was going around when I was in high school. So disease modeling was something that I was particularly interested in. So that tied in very well with my computational biology work. And I was able to work in a couple of places and do projects and stuff that I was interested in because of that.
Yeah, I mean, this aligns so well with Stephen AI is big on human-centered AI projects. So we start with the passion, like somebody has to be passionate about a problem that they're trying to solve, and then use AI as a tool, but keeping the human-centered approach, like the empathy, inclusiveness, ethics, and all of that. So yeah, really that is the way to build technical stuff. Like if you're building it in silo and you're only thinking about, what can I do with a great technology? That's not really going to go far or solve real problems in the world because there will be people who will be left out.
Yes,
Um,
exactly.
so do you feel that students underestimate the storytelling part on their applications and the impact?
Yeah. I think storytelling and impact is very important because at the end of the day, this is a human that's reading your story.
Yeah,
And they're the ones that are making your case to the other admissions officers, the admissions committee for why you should be a part of the school.
yeah.
So I think that kind of ties into like what I've been talking about with a spike and why you should build in like a certain area. I think it helps. You just have to figure out a way to differentiate yourself from like the slew of applications that they get. And I think storytelling or personalizing the things that you tell people, like you telling your college admissions essay, will help a lot with differentiating yourself. Yeah.
And same reason that empathy would be a big factor in differentiating a profile when they're talking about technical skills. Most people will talk about technical skills in like again absolute terms. Like I'm so good at technology, I build this. Versus if you have a human-centered approach, you talk about ethics, you talk about empathy, you talk about human-centered AI, then you weave it as a great story and show impact. I think all of that put together really helps you create an outstanding profile.
Yes, I agree.
So, what makes a project meaningful versus generic?
Yeah, I think one thing that I want to mention is like even if a project seems generic, I think there's ways to like that's also fine. Like if you don't have skills in a certain domain, like sometimes working on a generic project helps a lot with building those technical skills so you can work on more meaningful projects later. And when I first started, I definitely did not work on the most impactful projects. I just wanted to build and learn more about what I could do when I was starting out. And yeah, but I think like what makes a project meaningful for me is something that relates to you in some way and is unique from projects that people have done in the past. And I think the easiest way to get this, especially when you're in high school, is to reach out to a mentor and figure out like what are problems that they are tackling at their company. Figuring out, find a mentor that's conducting research at a university or a company. Another really easy way to do this is getting an internship. It doesn't even have to be paid. It can be an unpaid internship. It doesn't have to be at a company. It can even be like a nonprofit. There's a lot of different ways you can experiment with this, but I think working in the real world,
Hmm.
and building on projects there is what makes like helps a lot with making a project meaningful. I think it's also easy to build projects like you can also build projects in a silo, but I think it's definitely harder to do, and it's also harder to find motivation than if you
Yeah.
have someone that's willing to help, like make sure that you're keeping up with deadlines and things like that.
And how important you think is a good mentor or mentorship, the relationship with them, the learning from them, like having an industry mentor, how does that change or transform your learning experience?
Yeah, I think it's really helpful. I think like I had no idea what I was doing in high school. And I think that's like the case with a lot of people. I think mentors help you kind of like if you say very vague thing, I am interested in AI, I'm interested in computational biology, etc. They kind of help you frame that focus into something that's actionable or things that you can use like you can like things the action items you can do such as projects or things like that, and even like if you're stuck or lost in direction they also help you with that. Another thing I also found mentors very helpful for is they also help you find other people that could be mentors for you,
Yes,
and they also
the
open up.
network, the network
Exactly, they build your
effect.
network, and I think network is something that I don't you don't realize is very important until you get to college or when you
Yeah,
start looking for jobs. But I think it's very good to have that even as a high schooler, for very similar reasons.
very true. So you were accepted into CMU, Berkeley, EECS, UCLA, Georgia Tech, all wonderful, really extremely competitive schools and top 1% schools. So what do you think admission officers actually saw in your profile that really jumped out of the page?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, like I mentioned, like when I was talking with my admissions officer and while I was trying to frame what I was doing to the admissions committee. I think having a spike while having a well-rounded background is kind of the way that I did it. At this point, I did a lot of projects in machine learning and computational biology, so I think that did help me make me a great fit for these schools. Particularly like I know like UC Berkeley and Carnegie Mellon are like some of the top schools for artificial intelligence. So I connected a lot of the learning that I did to research initiatives that they were doing at Carnegie Mellon or at Berkeley, and I try to use those to show that, hey, I've done all this work, but I'm also interested in doing this work more at your school and helping put your school on the map for various reasons, right? If you publish research at their school, that's obviously a good look for them.
Yeah.
So they want that to be the case there. And I think specifically for Carnegie Mellon, I also worked with a mentor that actually went to Carnegie Mellon and was a faculty member there. So that was a very helpful. And I think that's what ended up ultimately leading me to get accepted into Carnegie. To a big decision in
All
me
these
getting.
schools.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
So, another question is like you mentioned that you at that point you had many different projects, even research, multiple research projects at that point.
Yeah.
So, were they all related to like yes, they were all in the computational biology field, but were they all similar projects, like one building on top of another, or they were like separate, different projects in the same domain?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I worked in a couple of different domains. Like I was a couple of different projects in the same domain. So for instance, I did an ambassadorship at Patchek, which is a contract tracing company. And that was completely contract tracing essentially is the idea that you are trying to figure out like who patient zero is in a disease outbreak. So that's a very different project than, for instance, what I was working on for my other research project, which is more relating to infectious diseases, which is a completely different domain. So yeah, I definitely worked in a couple of different domains. Like I said, a couple of different spaces within the same domain. But Yeah, I also did build on some projects. For instance, in my senior year, um, I worked on some of the research. I built on some of the research that I did in sophomore year. In the paper that I published. So, the paper that I published was regarding infectious diseases, and I figured out there was a certain there's a certain marker in your body that causes that causes a certain infectious disease to be more prevalent. So my research that I did in senior year was trying to figure out how can I stop that marker from causing that issue, or how can I block that marker essentially. So yeah, like, some of the work had built on it, but some of it was also in different spaces.
We have a participant question. How much of leadership role do we gain with these projects other than the research experience for a rising senior?
Could you repeat the question again? Sorry.
Yeah, how much of leadership role do we gain? Like how much experience as a leader you gain with these projects other than the research experience as a rising senior? I'm also not sure 100% of what I think what they're trying to understand is that in the research experience, do you also gain leadership experience or is it just the research experience?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's very dependent. I think it's hard to gain leadership experience in research as a high schooler, but I think one example, so like for research, like a very common like a very common thing that you do in research is you publish to conferences. And when you publish to conferences, like you have to put in a lot of work to craft this narrative, and you have to write a very strong paper. In this paper, you'll have like several authors that have all worked on the collaborating on various parts of the project. So if you're able to become like a first author in the paper, which is what or like a second author in the paper, which means that like you're one of the main contributors of the paper, you actually get to delegate some work to other people, or like you get to like tell like or like maybe you don't have experience in a certain domain, you can ask someone that has more experience to write a certain part of the paper or run an experiment. So I would say that there's maybe some examples of leadership there. I think one thing that also helps a lot with leadership is that there's a lot of strategy involved in it. I think you don't always know what you're doing in the next moment. You're running experiments, and that experiment could change the direction of what you do in the future. So I think because there's a lot of open-endedness, it helps you gain a lot of more soft skills than school, where you kind of know what the next step is going to be.
That makes sense. So did you intentionally connect activities together so that it becomes like the spoken wheel kind of a cohesive story?
Yeah, so I did connect stories together. Maybe like for more of a narrative sense than it actually was. So for instance, like when I was mo like you can use previous activities to kind of like motivate like maybe why you worked at certain things, or use it to tell a story. So you can like for instance, like I talked about the idea of like I talked to one of my teachers, and they were realizing there was low student engagement in class, and I use that to kind of figure out like what I can do to help out. And I built on the fact that I did this nano degree, which is one of my technical like experiences. And then I talked about another one of my projects, which is another one of my technical experiences, right? So I built this AI model that can help reliably detect facial emotions. So that's kind of an example where you can like bridge the gap or intentionally connect activities together. I think this is like maybe like one thing that I did was I just kind of brain dumped everything that I did from like high school, and I kind of just saw what things could be pieced together to write a meaningful narrative.
Yeah, and what, in your opinion, like what mistakes do students make in positioning themselves when they are writing for college applications?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think one thing that's very difficult now, is like a lot of people use AI heavily to curate the storytelling. And I think that kind of does show. As someone that works with AI a lot and also writes a lot of like papers and things like that, it's very obvious to tell when someone uses AI, even for people that professionally use AI like for writing. And obviously you can use AI to fine-tune your writing, in some regards. But I think a lot of the storytelling should come from your personal experience, and I think it does kind of show through when you write it yourself, even if the writing is not like push pitch like very very regular technically sound or rigorous. Another thing that I think is a very common mistake is people over exaggerate a lot of their stories, and I think it's okay like if you don't have a lot of experience. I think what people want to see more is like the passion that you have behind certain things. And I think that's a lot more powerful than anything else. Um, and if you talk more about the motivation behind why you worked on a certain project, and maybe like the impact that it did, I think that shows more than maybe boasting like slightly higher numbers, for instance, right? I think it's more important that you're kind of building a narrative on top of what you've actually done. And that also just makes you feel better, right? Like if you're getting into college like out of your own merits, yeah.
Yeah, I think you touched on a few different key points there. One is that be authentic. So even if you're using AI to like polish some of the things, don't use it to a point where, it looks so polished and perfect that anybody, the admission team can say that, feel that it was written by an AI tool. And nowadays they do have the published AI guidelines on what you can do and cannot do and what you can use the tool for and not. And the other is that, like you said, inflated numbers. I think that was another important feedback or advice. I would say that don't inflate numbers, even if your numbers of impact are small, make it authentic. Again, going back to authenticity in the story, make it sound like you, even if the numbers are small. Talk about the real things, how you built it, why you built it, the passion, the story, the why behind why you did this is at the end of the day more important. How you solve that particular challenge, and what were the different maybe roadblocks that came during, while you started doing something. That's also a great way to show how you look at obstacles and how you overcome them. What's your problem solving skill set? Those are the kind of things that actually admission officers are looking for, and that really helps in creating a cohesive profile. Um, so, do you think that students can build strong profiles even without winning huge competitions?
Yeah, that's a great question. So honestly, like I didn't win any huge competitions.
Okay.
And this is something that I actually tried to like I did like
Okay, so
I
before you go any further, so
yeah.
did you applied to competitions with your research papers? Tell me more about the kind of competitions you applied to.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I actually when I thought about competitions, I was thinking more regards to like maybe like AMC, which is like more math competitions or more like
Oh, that
coding
those kinds.
competition,
Okay.
competitive coding competitions.
USEMO, USICO.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Those kind of competitions.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult to do well in these competitions if you aren't willing to put in a lot of time. I think it's definitely not something you can start in high school. It takes a lot of energy to get to that level. And I have a lot of friends that have done well in those competitions, and it definitely takes a lot of effort to get to that level. Especially now, as the competition gets more and more intense for each of these competitions.
Yeah.
But again, like I mentioned, like I didn't do particularly well in any of these competitions, but I was still able to build a strong profile. Regardless. I do think there's some schools that do prioritize people that win these competitions. I know like
I see.
MIT, for instance, is one school that takes in a lot of these winners of competitions. But there's definitely a lot of really good schools out there that don't really look at these competitions.
Yeah. Our son is one of the students who used to do competition math as well as coding. He got into a very high level, but he started in middle school. So it
Oh,
was like in sixth grade he started working on the art of problem solving and all of those things, and really learning coding even before that, and like really building up to that. So it does, like you said, like those kind of competition, like very rigorous competition, math and coding, those take a long time to build. And yeah, you can't just get started with them. You can, but like it does take time and effort. But like, yeah, you don't necessarily like look at where you are today, so
yeah.
it doesn't have to start with competition. So what we are trying to showcase here is there are many different paths, and not everyone has to follow one particular path to get to, a good tech a good college and then a good career. There are many different paths. And so you can, our objective here with these insider conversations is for you to explore different paths and different paths that led different students, candidates to these different final, not even final, but at least this ladder so far. And then who knows what's next.
Yeah.
The world is your oyster. So, you ultimately chose CMU amongst all the schools that you were accepted in. And I know you briefly mentioned it was because of your computational biology, and they have one of the strongest um, majors over there. So, but tell us more. Is that the only reason why CMU specifically?
Yeah, so I think one reason why love CMU is because they pride themselves on their technical rigor a lot. They're probably one of the most technically rigorous TS curriculums like in the world. Which I definitely felt when I was taking the like what was at the school. I think another reason why I really enjoyed the school was because it has a lot of opportunities for undergraduates to work in research, which is one thing that I was really interested in because research is kind of like the forefront of innovation, right, at any location, which is one thing that I really wanted to work on early on. And yeah, like I think it was just a great place that I knew I could learn to build my skills as I was interested in working there. Technically, I was interested in working like in a more technical role post grad. Yeah.
Okay. We have other questions for you. Do the student need straight A's academically in all subjects to get into competitive colleges? Or some B's would work. Is there any GPA range that look at others than various extracurricular or leadership skills?
Yeah, I'm sure there's probably some statistics online that can
Yeah,
probably show like the
exactly.
percentiles. I think if there's been a significant drop in grades, I think you can definitely mention it, like maybe like in like a certain semester or certain like subjects, you can explain like why that's the
Hi.
case. Yeah, they do have like an additional information section I believe in the Common App essay. If it's significantly low, but definitely like a couple of B's will not harm your application like at all. Again, like I mentioned, like this is a holistic application, right? So they don't look at a specific number. They are looking more at like the story that you're telling. And I don't think that that should hinder anything. But if you do feel like that is something that is a big issue, then you can write about it in the additional information section about why maybe those bees were gotten. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if how many of you listened to our last lab, previous lab. There was this student, Sion Agarwal, who is from UC Davis. She actually talks about she skipped a couple of math grades and she took really advanced math in grade 10, like when she was a sophomore at high school. And then she saw a decline, and the hardest thing to do was to ask for help. And so yeah, like even with the declining grades, she actually wrote an essay about that, like why it happened, how she was able to overcome that, and then improve her scores later on, and why it happened, the why behind it, and what she did about it. So yeah, make it authentic, make it a story, tell them why it happened, and what did you do about it instead of just seeing the decline. That adds to the story as well. Okay, there's another question. Do colleges only look at 10th and 11th grade GPA, or the first half of 12th grade is also considered to show academic rigor and improvement?
They do, I think, look at
Yeah,
like the
they
first of,
do.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 And I think they also like one thing that I know a couple of schools do is they do look at the second semester of college. There's something called I think like a continuation like essay that you might have to write. I know MIT has that, for instance, where they'll ask you to write an essay. Asking you what experiences you've done like while the application process has been completed. So yeah, I think if you are interested in certain schools that have those kind of essays, definitely keep your grades up. Even though it might be you might want to relax a little bit after the admission cycle, application cycle is over.
Yeah. So I think you said second semester of college, but you meant
Oh,
second
high school, yeah.
senior. Yes,
Yes.
senior, high school senior year. Yeah. Okay. So what were some of the surprises when you got to CMU?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think CMU is definitely harder than I think I realized was going to be. I think college in general is something
Yeah.
that a lot of people think is gonna be like easier. But I think
High school is the hardest. Once you get to college, a good college, then you're set.
yeah, exactly. But I think maybe not exactly that, right? I think the content becomes a little bit more difficult.
Yeah.
But I think one thing that I really enjoyed about college is that people are very collaborative. I think the idea also that kind of like I think high school has like a lot of like kind of like maybe like I don't know exactly, but maybe like 8 to 3 you are in classes, right? That kind of that gets deconstructed in college. So your classes are only for very small periods of chunks throughout the day, and you're mostly working on homework or like doing other things in that other time. So I think you have a lot of mobility and flexibility in how you plan your day, and I think that's honestly amazing. I got to talk to a lot of upperclassmen that did a lot of very cool things, and I was able to work on clubs like while like in my lunch break, like in the middle of the day. And I think it helps a lot. I think like in high school, it's very difficult to do things because you have to do it after school, and you're already so tired after school. But I think once you get to college, you kind of have a lot of mobility to like figure out what you want to work on at various periods of time. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we did a lot of ground covering on high school, which is the meat of this presentation and fireside chat. But like, let's talk about your internships. I know I want to talk about your Microsoft experience, and then I also want to leave time for some Google experience. Although you're just starting and you don't have that yet, but
Yeah, yeah, of course, yeah.
yeah. So you worked on a RAG-based Teams chatbot at Microsoft. Is that correct?
Yes.
So for parents and students hearing RAG and LLMs constantly now, what does it actually mean in practice?
Yeah, so I guess like the technical term for RAG, like if you break out the acronym is retrieval augmented generation.
Generation.
And I think the reason like why it's very important is because at a high level, LLMs are known to give you incorrect responses, and that's just the way that they're trained. So what RAG helps you do is it helps you inject like context about what you're asking for, like from an expert knowledge base. I mean, to break that down even further, so an example, like maybe for instance, I'm asking a question about Romeo and Juliet for my AP literature class, for instance, right? What RAG will be able to do is it'll be able to like intelligently retrieve sections from the Romeo and Juliet book. So maybe we're asking about chapter two. So it'll be able to pull the context from chapter two, and it'll be able to place it in the context of the LM. So the LM is able to give a more accurate and grounded answer. So it's basically the idea that LLMs are trained on the entire internet. So sometimes they forget certain things, right? Like just like that's kind of how it works based on their training. So this is just basically a way of helping them remember certain aspects of things.
Yeah, this reminds me of one of our students' team in AI project. They built a recycling AI platform, a chatbot conversational AI platform for recycling. And as you might know, recycling rules for every city are different. And some may say, okay, this is recyclable, and some may say this is trash, right? Like
Mhm.
there are different rules. And so we actually help them download all the rules from their county, their city, and then do a RAG implementation based on, when the chatbot conversational AI is answering questions to a user, like whether this is what should I do with cotton, for example, a ball of cotton, it would not just make stuff up or give you random answers. It would actually look up what does this city follow rules as recyclable or not, and then give them. So that's retrieval augmented generation. So you can use it in many different contexts. Uh,
Awesome.
but this is awesome. Yeah. So you are now joining Google as an AI Catalyst Fellow. So what excites you most about this next chapter?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think um the thing that excites me the most is I think Google is obviously like at the forefront of AI. And I think one thing that really excites me is that they have access to world-class infrastructure.
Yeah.
So they've built their infrastructure from their search from the search days and where they've had to like deal with billions of users. And because of that, they have incredible infrastructure. The team the organization I'm specifically working on is in the AI infrastructure space. So it's dealing a lot with how these requests get served. And I think that's just a very exciting space for me because you're dealing with millions of users. And it's very important to keep very low response times. And yeah, that's kind of one of the things that excites me the most. One of the other things that excites me the most is I don't really know what I want to do specifically in AI. So the program that I'm in specifically is a rotational program. So
Oh,
I'm able to rotate between three different teams in this organization and figure out like what I'm interested in before I start. So I'm pretty excited to delve into different parts of AI at
oh.
Google and see what I'm most excited to work on.
I think this rotational teams is an excellent way to learn new ways of, otherwise people join a team and they're stuck in it for like until they jump out to another company or
Exactly.
another, like formally transferred to another role. But this is a great opportunity. Awesome. So I want to now again talk about some of the risks that, people feel with AI, like the
Mhm.
entry level jobs as well as automation. Like a lot of students and parents are worried, will AI replace jobs? What do you think?
Yeah, so I think like for me specifically, I'll talk about this first from like a coding context.
Okay.
I think its best use right now is in coding. But even then it's only providing a supplement to software engineers. I think one of the issues regard is with regards to like AI safety. And like there's a lot of issues with AI like that it won't always provide the correct answer and there's been a lot of research that's been done that shows that it actually devolves over time, so it can't just be left alone to run on its own. And it's definitely been getting better. And I will say that like maybe like the role of the software engineer has definitely changed from more hands-on coding to more planning. But at this moment, there isn't a need for software engineers to go away. Which is why I'm working in the role that I am working in right now. And even if it ends up getting to the point where software engineers there's less of them that it's needed, I do think that other jobs will open up. One of the new jobs that I've seen open up actually is calling like forward deployed AI engineers. And basically what that is they inject these engineers into companies and they build AI systems in these various companies that are tailor-made for specific companies. So that's a new role that's been created because of AI. And I think there's going to be other new roles that are going to be created because of that. Um, and I think with regards to other jobs, maybe consulting, design, data science, a similar trend appears where like jobs are like kind of being reshaped rather than replaced. And it's because of similar issues to what I've mentioned before. So I think we're not at the stage where jobs are getting super ultimately like replaced. There's definitely a thinning in the amount of jobs that are needed because AI has made things more efficient, but they have not fundamentally changed like what jobs are needed right now, in my
Yeah.
opinion. Yeah.
So rest assured, everybody, all the roles are just going to be transformed, but there will be jobs. And as long as you are keeping up with, technology and you have the skill set of problem solving, leadership, communication, I think those are the kind of people that will thrive in the AI era, according to me. What are your thoughts? What kind of skills, Aditya, should people have or acquire that
Mhm.
will not make them obsolete in the AI era?
That's a great question. I think one thing that I think is very useful is the ability to like change like in various regards. I think like specifically like for like anyone working in like software engineering, I think like people like that work in this space like know that you have to continually change, learn new technologies. And this is like something that hasn't like is a very old thing. It's not very like it's been around like since even before the AI era. I think that's something that is still going to be needed even now. And I think that's one of the most important things. I think the other kind of people that will thrive in the AI era is people that are able to build things that AI cannot at this point. So building highly technical people that are able to reason better than AIs in a specific niche. And I think like the third type of people that will be able to thrive is people that will be able to help AI plan. So you're able to like build agents or build AI systems that are able to do things autonomously for you. I think those people will thrive because they're going to be able to let AIs do like the work for them, and they're going to be able to like get income passively because of that.
Yeah, we just have a few more minutes left, so I want to do like a countdown. If you were advising a ninth grader,
Mm.
what would you prioritize at that age? And we'll talk about ninth and then a 10th grader and an 11th grader. So what would you
Yeah,
ask them to prioritize?
of course. I think in ninth grade, the most important thing to prioritize is figuring out like what you're interested in. So for me, that just comes from like taking courses, watching YouTube videos, talking to your parents, figuring out what interests you, trying out different things. Like you're also starting college, high school, so there's a lot of things that are going to be changing in your life. So figuring out like what clubs you're interested in, and kind of building like the roadmap for like what you want to do for like the next 2 or 3 years, right? And I think that's kind of where I would get started from. You can use your parents' help a lot for this. But I think the most important thing is figuring out what are you passionate about, because if you're not passionate about what you're working on, then you're not gonna want to do it. And that's gonna become very difficult to do when you're building out projects or doing research or doing an internship. So it's very important that you kind of figure this out by like just doing some exploratory analysis on like what topics find interesting.
What about 10th grade?
Yeah, I think for 10th grade, I think once you get to that point, hopefully you have a better idea of what you're interested in. I think at this point, like just try to find mentors that can help you with your growth. You're a little bit older, so you maybe have a little bit more experience in certain domains. Try to replicate some smaller projects online, build like smaller things that can help hone your skills. And then I think once you get past that point, you can try looking for research or internship opportunities now that you have a little bit more skills.
11th?
I think in 11th grade, you should probably have a good idea of what you want to do, a good idea of your skills. This should be kind of like the point where you should be actively trying to find opportunities to build something unique. This is like I think what a lot of people call their passion project. So I think just also trying to gain other skills that are relevant. So you should lead like you should be like hopefully like in position to become a leader in like senior year or like junior year. And yeah, like I think like ninth and 10th grade help a lot with the stepping stones for that, but this should be like the point where you kind of hit the crux of that, where you're kind of like leading or like you're building unique projects. Yeah.
Yeah, you're taking stuff that you have done exploratory in ninth, going deeper in 10th, and then really honing in the 11th grade and then taking off with it.
Yes.
So what do you wish more parents understood about preparing students for AI careers of the future?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think one thing is that it's very difficult to motivate, and this is something that I realized from talking to a lot of parents, like, and a lot of students, is it's very difficult to motivate kids to do anything if they don't want to do it. And I think like this is something that like everyone has probably realized, right? So I think the most important thing to do is like spark curiosity in your kid's brain. Um, I think finding like things that make technical things fun to do, right? So I think like like parents should try motivating their kids to like maybe explore different career paths. If they're working in a specific career path, like if they're working in software engineering, they can show like what they're working on, anything that's exciting to them. If there's anything cool, like for instance, that hide and seek video that I found, that's pretty exciting, right? To someone that's not technical, but like wants to learn more about the space. That's pretty cool. For instance, if you're interested in robotics, showing examples of like robots like doing like various things. So that's like kind of like what I think is good to supplement, like to spark curiosity in a kid's brain. I think beyond that, once you have sparked curiosity, I think giving access to mentors and support to help supplement their learning, especially if they're interested in the same domain that you are in. I think that's very helpful if you kind of tell them how you learn various things or help them as they are learning things.
All right, rapid fire. Are you ready?
Yes.
One skill every student should learn.
Yeah, I think what I eventually learned is how to build an AI agent.
True.
Yeah.
One mistake ambitious students make.
I think trying to optimize for doing everything rather than doing quality things.
Absolutely agree. Best way to stand out today.
Mm, I think I think the best way to stand out today is I think like I mentioned earlier, just trying to gain a major technical spike in something that you're very passionate about. Yeah.
What's your favorite AI tool right now?
This is something actually that my mom actually had told me about. It's called Notebook LM. So it's a tool that helps you explain concepts very easily. This is very good for like learning various concepts. Yeah.
Yeah, it lets you do that podcast also and all of that, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very
It's a
nice.
Google product, no?
Yeah, it's a Google. Maybe I'm doing some advertising.
Good, good. You're already there. You're already doing it. It is a great product tool, I know. Okay, one thing you do differently in high school.
Yeah. Um, I think one thing that I do differently in high school is just like I think I would have started earlier. I started like maybe towards the ending of sophomore year or like mid sophomore year, so it was very difficult to get caught up at that point.
Oh, wow. But I thought you already said that you started in freshman year, right?
Yeah, so I did the nano degree towards like the beginning of sophomore year, but I only started building projects like maybe like when COVID started. So yeah, so I didn't really utilize like the first 2 years. Yeah.
Okay. You were well, how much sooner? As soon as middle school you can start. I mean, it's
That's true.
only
That's
going
true. Yeah.
lower. Yeah.
Yeah.
Most under, no, I mean, not to make you feel bad, like that's not the reality. Like how much younger people now, I get questions when their kids are in, I ask them, I have a private group and they ask me, like, can I join? And ask them, what grade is your kid? And they're
Yeah.
like, they're only in kindergarten, but I want to get started now. Like I want to
Oh
learn
my
everything. I'm
God.
like, you have time, don't worry, you don't have to be that
Wow.
paranoid. Yeah, no. So this is such a big thing, and especially for immigrant parents, because like you said, we didn't go to high school here. We don't like didn't apply for college applications, the holistic process. It's very different for us.
Hmm.
So there is a lot of anxiety. There is a steep learning curve. So parents feel like the sooner we get started, the better it will be. But I think that all of that is causing more anxiety and anxiousness. So to all the parents out there, you still have time. Enjoy, let the student explore until they are in, at least in middle school. You can still let them do many activities. Even ninth grade could be used for more exploration, like deeper exploration. And then maybe you start building out the profile and the stories, and learning more about the college application process. And even if you start in high school, you will have plenty of time to do it right.
Yes.
All
Very
right,
good.
Aditya, we are at 6:01. I really want to thank you for being so transparent and very thoughtful today. I think what's especially valuable is that students got to see this whole progression from curiosity to projects to leadership skills that you've built, research projects that you have done, and how that has helped you reach the internships that you've got and now to full-time position. So they got to see the whole journey of what it looks like from high school to college. And you also finish your master's
Yes.
as well, right? Wow. I still can't get over it. Like you're 21, you've completed your master's, and you are at Google now. So
Thank you. Thank you.
with that, I'm sure your parents are very proud of you, as are all of our listeners. And so, all the very best for Google and for beyond, and many many success.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right. With that, thank you everyone for joining us. Watch the replay if you want for Aditya's lab and other labs, previous labs, and they will all be available on the labs page. Meena Iyer says, nicely done, Aditya. So good
Thank you.
job. Take care. Bye, Aditya. Bye,
Bye.
everyone.